she called me into her room, and I went in there, and she just started crying. And you know, at the time I'm thinking like, what's wrong, Ma? You know, I'm thinking she's sick or, you know, something's really wrong, but she just happened to tell me that I wasn't her child. I was 16 years old. So, you know, that's kind of devastating for a 16-year-old kid, thinking that this was his family, but all along, it wasn't your family, by birth, anyway. But I was blessed, though, because they treated me with so much love. After that, I quit playing sports and everything, because I would just want to go somewhere and hide. I didn't even know how to deal with the pain and not, you know, thinking that this is your family, but it's not. You know, you get paranoid. So I started distancing myself from my family. I stopped playing sports. Within a couple months after I quit playing sports, I caught a case. I started selling drugs. I've tried to fix the pain with weed and alcohol. And if anybody know about the summer of '88, this is what my mother told me this. The crack epidemic was in full swing at this time. So it was just waiting to get me and take me, you know, places where I didn't need to be going. I was in it was my senior, she told me this right before my senior year of high school. So it's one thing I always said, like, I'm gonna graduate high school. That's one thing I'm gonna do, you know, I always wanted to go to college. But I was saying that, she told me that, I was like, one thing you gotta do is you gotta finish high school. So I ended up, I caught two cases that year. After that, I graduated that June of 1989 from Detroit Cody High School. After that, I started going back and forth to Ohio. I ripped and run, you know, doing things that I wasn't supposed to be doing, selling drugs. And I was down there for 2 years. I mean, we hit everything where we lived like, it was like really just like the Jacqueline. We lived just crazy, you know. So for 2 years, I went back up and down 75, I-75. If anybody know, that's what they call Detroit boys, the I-75 boys. You know, I went from everywhere to down 75 from Toledo to Lima and everything on I-80 East, all the way through Sandusky, Canton, Akron, Elyria, Sandusky, and Cleveland, which is the last place that I went to before we decided to go to Cleveland. And the first night we got there, I caught a case for that. This was the same day that Magic announced that he had HIV. That's where I was at. That same day when he announced that I was in the Cleveland County Jail down there. I bonded out of jail. I ended up being on the run for 4 years. And this time I had my daughter in January of '94. By that summer of '94, I found out that they had a warrant out for me, and he was looking to extradite me back to Ohio. So I made dua back then. I asked Allah. I didn't call him Allah back then, but I asked God, I said, just let me see my daughter's first birthday. And my daughter's first birthday was January the 20th, 1995. No later than 2 weeks after that, I was back locked up again and on my way to Ohio. I ended up going down there. I went through the court procedures, and I was looking at 8 to 25 years, and I took a plea to 30 months in prison down there. I ended up doing 16 months on that 30 months. I comes back home. For years, I was back and forth doing the same things, you know. The money was good, but all through the late 90s and 2000s, you know, I was ripping and running. And there was always something. I used to have cars and stuff like that, and jewelry and money and everything that came with the game, but it was always an emptiness that I had. It was so many days that I used to drive in my cars and just cry for no reason and didn't even know why I was crying. Now I know why. Because I ain't have a lost power of God in my life. But I went through that for a while, and I ended up catching my last case, which was about 7 years ago. And this is how I came to Islam. It was, I caught a case, and I go to jail, and it gives me probation with two months in the 2 months in the county jail and 2 months in the halfway house. So I'm up on the rock, as they call it in the county. And I always read when I get locked up. Every time I get incarcerated, I just read voracious, I just read. And this one guy, he had all the books stacked up in his room, like a rock boss or something. You know what I'm talking about. Anybody might not know, but he would hand me books and say, look, just take this and read this. And I would take whatever book he gave me and I would just read it, because I just love to read. So I read one book, 2 books, I think it was 3 or 4. Once he seen I was reading the books, he said, come in my room and pick whatever book you want. So he lifts up his mattress, and he said, take your pick, just pick whatever book you want. And I seen something sitting there, it was thick, it was like a Bible. I said, what's that, a Bible? He was like, no, it's a Quran. I said, let me see that. He gave it to me, I went back in my room, it was just like those over there. I didn't have the first part, I just had the second part. And when I got it, I read it, I wanted to see the beginning. But I took that, and I didn't come out of my room. They would call the child to eat, I would go out there, eat, and I would come back, and I would read all day, and I would do that all 3 meals. I wouldn't even come out of my room no more. But it was the Surah Ar-Rahman. I got to Surah 55, and then I knew. I knew through Surah Ar-Rahman that the Quran was the truth. I'm listening to all the bounties that he's telling me, that he's giving me. And then he added to it, then which are the favors of your Lord which you deny. He just pierced me. He woke me up. And I ended up leaving there and doing the 2 months in the county jail. And then I leaves out and I go to the halfway house. So when I leave the halfway house, I get out of the halfway house, I goes back, and the streets pull me back again. But the guy let me take that Quran home, so I had the Quran, but it was just put up in the closet. So I go for about 12 months. I'm ripping and running from place to place, doing really just wasting my time. Already knew that I wanted to make a change, I just didn't know how. You get caught up in a box, like one of these boxes, and you be in there for 20-something years, and somebody try to tell you to come up out of that box. It's gonna be kind of uncomfortable. So I had to shake that, and I had to shake that, and I came back, and I got to a point in my life, and in that next year I got to a point to where I was tired of being the person that I was. I was drinking heavily, I was smoking weed, I was doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing. I got to a point one day where I looked up, I was 38 years old, I said, man, you gotta make a change in your life. I said, I'm gonna stop drinking. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do it. And I'm saying I'm gonna stop drinking. I said, this is it right here. I'm gonna stop. And I said, how are you gonna do it? Because I'm used to living off that crutch. You ever doing something so long, this is your crutch. This is your crutch. This is what you run to when you got a problem. I didn't know how to live life on life terms. I was doing the same thing from the day my mother told me that up until I stopped. So I said to myself, I said, go back to that book. I said, go back to that same book that you had when you gave you contentment and peace when you was in the county jail. I said, go back to the book and just read it. And I went back to the book, the Furqan, and I ain't took a drink since that day. November the 3rd, 2009. I haven't took a drink ever since then. And after that, I started reading the Quran. For the first 30 days that I stopped drinking, I read the Quran every day. I didn't leave the Quran because I was weak up here, fragile. My emotions was fragile. You ever heard, you probably never heard of it, when somebody uses substance abuses, his emotional level is at the same level that it is when he began using it. So I was emotionally fragile back then, at that time. So what I did, I read the Quran, and now I got to the point where I'm saying, okay, now it's time for you to go congregate. It's time to go see how to be a Muslim, because I already came to a conclusion that I want to be a Muslim because the Quran had told me this is it. It wasn't nothing else. So I ends up I knew about 3 places. I knew about over there, and everybody know the people that's misinformed. They all think that the Nation of Islam and now Islam is all the same. A lot of people that's misinformed. So that's how I thought. So I'm thinking like, okay, I'm gonna go over there on Wyoming. Then I was like, I knew about this because my family stayed on the east side, so I would always ride past here. I remember when they first opened here. I would always ride past when I was young. And I would ride past here, so I always wondered what's going on inside of there, you know. Because I'd never been in no other worship or a place of worship except church. So, and I also knew about Wali Muhammad from riding past there. And something just told me to go to Wali Muhammad. And that's why I went on a Sunday thinking that our congregation day is on a Sunday. You know, so I goes over there and it's the imam at the time is the Imam Gary Kassid. And when I gets there, I walks in and he like, what you come here for? And I was like, I came here to learn about the deen, about Islam. I want to be Muslim. And he was like, okay. He told me, we talked for a little minute, and then he told me to come back. He said, come back on Friday. But even though I had stopped drinking and I was sober for a minute, I still was in the streets though. So what I did was, I didn't come that Friday. I came back again Sunday. I finally found out that's a Talim. We was having Talim. So it was the same. It was a Muslim new Shahadas Day. It was a Muslim couple. They was there, and the Imam Gary Kassid. What's the brother who sell the honey? Omar. He was there, and I was there. And I took Shahada with them, and I would go. That's why I went for a while. And then I went there for a while, then I was going back and forth down to Cass last year because I moved downtown. And then I came over here for a minute. But I want to tell everybody, when you see a new Shahada, be nice to him. Because if it wasn't for the Quran, I would have been gone. I knew what I was reading was the truth, because nobody here tell me I wasn't going to be Muslim, so I overlooked everything. You know, because a new Shahada, he get it real mad. Yes. A lot of times. You know, so after that, you know, and my whole life changed at the time after that. I started going to school. I got a job for the first time ever in my life at 38 years old. First job ever. I had one in high school at the Sweeten House. If anybody remember the Smudge Boys back in the day. I was a busboy there. At about 16 and 17, I think. And after that, I didn't have a job till I was 38 years old. And it felt good, you know, that I got a check stub, and I started going to school at Henry Ford. I finished, you know, I got my degree there, my bachelor's, my associates, liberal arts at Henry Ford. I graduated in May of 2013. And I'm currently a student at Wayne State. But so at the time, I was, you know, it was I had a lot of resentment and anger too growing up, and then Islam took all that, you know. I had resentment with my mom who took care of me, because I didn't understand. So I had resentment with my mother who took care of me, gave me everything that she wanted, and I also had resentment with my mother that I never met. So I was running from both of them, but I got over that, and I finally found a private investigator to find my mother, and then she had passed. I just went to North Carolina in January, me and my wife and the kids. We went down to North Carolina. I met my family for the first time. You know, first time ever in life. It was a blessing. And that kind of it was tough. It was tough. But and everything took shape for me. Everything that I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for, He gave me. I always think about Surah Duha. And he was talking to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he revealed the revelation to him, and he said that I don't want to misquote, but he said, I found you in guidance. I found you wandering, and I gave you guidance. He said, I found you in need and made you independent. And every time I read that surah, you know what I'm saying, I can't begin to understand myself the way that Allah has been so merciful to me. And that's my story, and I thank y'all for letting me talk.
Takbir. 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 Takbir.